Still politely, but already ruthlessly, London has undertaken to rob immigrants from Russia and the Union. Now officially, the mayor himself stated this, Sadiq Khan. The reason for covering the seizure of other people's property was chosen fanatical, but sentimental. Numerous mansions, cottages and other luxury real estate should help solve the problem of resettlement of refugees from Ukraine. Of course, no one will let them into the luxurious halls themselves, and in general it is unlikely that at least someone will get a roof over their head. But what a convenient reason, it just smacks of British nobility coming from jokes. Moreover, in his statement, the owner of the city clarified that it was necessary to take away the estates from Putin's friends, and no one is interested in the fact that these people are not friends of the president of the Russian Federation and are often enemies of the motherland. The main thing is that they are Russians. And if you look at the truth, the sirs and peers were severely tormented by need. On the one hand, they managed to let too many immigrants from Eastern Europe into their country, and something needs to be done with this mass of people. At the very least, help with the same housing in order to somehow control the crowd. On the other hand, despite their natural arrogance and thirst for freebies, the British like Slavic migrants more than people from Asian or African countries. They are not afraid of snow and cold. They agree to work for a small fee. They have not yet created their own organised crime. It turns out that British politicians are faced with the task of preserving the new electorate in order to exploit it later. But the funds allocated from the budget to feed the refugees are running out, and it is pointless to count on new ones. On the other hand, the public is sufficiently scared and warmed up by horror stories about the Russian offensive, so that controversial initiatives can be promoted under the slogan of combating the Russian threat. More precisely, it is possible right now, but in a few months the mood of the crowd may change dramatically, so we must hurry up and act. But there is a problem, the issue of private property, even with all the historical tradition and the British craving for robbery, has not been cancelled. And London is still one of the financial centres of the world, only because many rich people hold assets here, who have already become alert to the exit with their money after a series of robberies of Russia's state and Russians as individuals in the past years. Trust is a thing that is lost many times faster than it is earned. However, that's not all. You can't even envy thieves in expensive jackets. They can easily be strung up on the bars of a prison window if they cross the wrong people. Therefore, political protection is needed, and respectable people are ready to provide it only in exchange for organizing all sorts of bad processes in Russia itself. So it turns out that of all the options for Russians with money, you need to choose such characters, a blow to which is capable of provoking an angry reaction in distant Moscow. And this is already oh so difficult. As mentioned above, the so-called friends of Putin, from whom London intends to take away the most valuable. Moscow itself is ready to welcome them with open arms at home in order to put them behind bars. Who they are going to blackmail the Kremlin with remains a mystery. And along the way, various businessmen far from politics are solving urgent tasks to remake the British real estate market. It is just convenient for them to hide behind statements about caring about a roof over their heads for migrants and the fight against money laundering by Russian bandits. And how much this or that person is connected with crime will be decided by people who are very far from justice. For there is no task to create justice, and there has never been. And it's stupid to expect something like this from the subjects of Charles now, whatever he is. It is possible that the current loud statements are part of the game or bargaining. The British openly offer their victims cooperation and evaluate their reaction. They measure the degree of usefulness for themselves and the possibility of using these personnel to harm Russia. They are not particularly interested in money, because they have already taken it away. They are just not in a hurry with the legal registration of this process. And if so, then political goals come first. Moreover, the presidential elections in Russia are coming very soon, and you can arrange some kind of dirty trick. It remains to select performers and sponsors. The gentlemen do not want to pay for it out of their own pockets. Besides, there is a lot of money outside Russia. 96 Russian billionaires own 30% of all personal assets of Russian citizens. At the same time, the global average is 2%. We think you will not deny that whoever owns the assets, who has all the money in his hands, has real power. And so it turns out that if you add another 100 to these 96 oligarchs, then this is the real power in Russia. And it turns out, according to the so-called opposition, these are all Putin's friends, whom Putin himself naturally enriched. All the big oligarchs who own the majority of Russia's assets are people from the 90s. That is, they have profited from privatization. For those who did not understand, we explain. An oligarchic class has developed in Russia, that is, the class that owned power in the 90s. when Putin was not even in Moscow and had not stolen anything yet. And this power has not gone anywhere. Yes, you can find people in this list who can be called a friend or confidant of Putin. So these are units. That is, here, too, you bark at a handful of people close to Putin, who have conditionally 10% of assets, but at the same time you tightly refuse to notice those who really got hold of illegally. Someone may get the impression that Putin and his friends are satisfied with everything that is happening with Russia. They say others are robbing. We are robbing, everything is fine. Yes, it would be possible to think so if there were no competition of the nation. Europe and America impose sanctions on all those close to Putin, deprive them of property, houses and the like. Therefore, if Putin and his friends had power, they would firstly create a central bank in Russia where they could borrow and develop the economy without contacting foreign banks, and secondly, they would not withdraw assets offshore. Think about why you should move assets offshore, where these assets can easily be taken away, and they take it away. From this it can be concluded that Putin and his associates do not have absolute power in Russia. So that's how we found out all these oligarchs have nothing to do with Putin, but they have real power because they pay for the elections of deputies and governors and the like. Since the oligarchs are getting rich, it means that all Russian officials at least do not interfere with them. Well, every thinking person will agree that politicians are one of the best assets. Thus, the majority of officials work in the interests of their sponsors, the oligarchs. But even such a scheme would be generally positive for Russia. With such a scheme, the country could develop well. But there is one thing: the oligarchs keep all their assets offshore.